Good morning to all of you lovely ducklings who have decided to join me today. And, oh my goodness, I am a wreck this morning between the thunderstorms and puppy and everything. It is wild. I am unplugging my mouse because this is not going to work. Okay, so, uh, I have not been able to do any more rigging on this since the last time that I was live last week. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue where I left off. For those of you who are new here, my name is Lucky Pollo. I am a duck girl VTuber. I am a mallard duck, for the record. And I am very excited to be able to share Live2D with you guys. For any of you who are joining from the video that I made this weekend, welcome on in. I'm glad to have you here. And I believe strongly in having a skill that is going to hopefully outpace AI for at least a little while. We obviously can't predict what we're going to have in 10 years from now, but we can at least try to, you know, oh, lovely Stream Elements. Thank you, Stream Elements. Sorry about that. um, we can't really predict what's going to happen in the next 10 years. If you would have said, 10 years ago that we would have TikTok, or, some of the other things that we have now, people would not believe you. So we just got to do our best to be able to handle some of the changes that we're dealing with. Now, I know this right here is a little bit weird. I'm gonna have to fix that, mind you. But you can kind of see what happens when the keyframe shifts. At least that, the other stuff becomes invisible and then this stuff becomes visible. Oh, I might have to sneeze. Nope, 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 no sneeze today. Good morning, Aline. Welcome on in. I am so happy to have you here. I am just getting back into the rigging today. I know, like I said, I still have to fix this, because this keyframe has these things over here. You can kind of see the little, the green hexagonal thingies. I'll have to move those when they're in here, that way, or even just make like another keyframe where they're like, where they're supposed to be. I don't know. We'll find out. I could probably just go here and then make them transparent temporarily, or not transparent, visible temporarily, and then make them not opaque again. That might be the best plan of action, but I don't know yet. So right now I'm working on the toggle for this arm. Right now, let me go down here. Right now, we have a little bit of turning action, but I hadn't quite finished this. Because the plush still has to move, because that is just beyond awkward right there. And yes, quack morning. So I have to go through basically all these different, like, keyforms, to effectively make things work. And if you were here last time, which I know you were, Aline, you would also know that when we do these kinds of riggings, we use these deformers for the most part, and mostly use the actual base mesh as the way to make things like slightly tweaked or visible versus, not visible. Because you can't really do that with the transformers here. Or the deformers, I'm sorry. My brain is not functional this morning. I woke up at like 6 because of a barking dog and lightning strikes outside my window. So I'm pleased that the rain has stopped. I hear the birds chirping, so there's at least some hope here. So I guess the next thing to do is going to be this side, and for this, the NebGen Plush XY, we are going to hide the bounding box. That's what the red box is called. It's called a bounding box. And we're just kind of gonna shift some things over, right? I am going to do a little bit of physics for the tail so that it swings when it moves. But to get the main, like, shape, you gotta start with the first overall thing, because the physics go on a separate parameter. Boop. So it's basically just perspective. Move that up, because I imagine that that would look a little bit more bulky if, you know, we were moved over like this, you know? And then also the fingers have got to move. And that has its own deformer. So, let me see here. Also, I apologize. I have a little bit of a stuffy nose. And that's just allergies. I have asthma. It really just ducking sucks. And then I'm gonna unhide the bounding box real quick because I'm gonna do shift and click. I'm gonna move that over a little bit. So now it's looking a little bit more. Not quite. This is a little bit too inward. I feel like this should probably go a little bit more like that to make it look like it's a little bit more forward facing. I know, you know, a lot of people will go through the hassle of, like drawing each finger individually and stuff, but you know, I am a scuff and lazy duck. We don't entirely do things the right way. Because we are crunched on time all the time. For those of you who don't know, I work full-time on top of the content that I do. I make the most of my time. This really is a hobby for me. I feel like this could probably be shifted just slightly over. Maybe just a tad down. And then kind of move this up. Make it, again, look a little bit more forward-facing. Yes, very much scuff duck. Okay, that's still looking a little weird. Which tells me that these fingers need to, like, shift a little bit angle-wise. I know this looks super jank, I promise. There is a method to my madness. And mostly it's just getting it to look the same way I would have it if I drew it. So kind of comparing. I feel almost like this should be slightly turned. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that. Maybe like that. Like that should be a little bit more wide. Effectively, you just play around with it until you get it to look right. The smart way to do it for real artists would be to actually draw it in the position that you want it, so you know how it's gonna look, and maybe even import that as a mesh to use, which is actually why we have a separate hand for holding things and a separate cuff for holding things, because the original ones are not drawn for that. They are drawn for a down position. So still making this look right. This way it looks like the fingers kind of like curve inward, which is good. So that's looking a little bit more proper. I'm sure it'll look even better once we actually have like some physics going on. Okay. Now to look at the up and down. Because you know that that's going to affect some things. Like the tail is going to move up, which means that the tail is going to have its own separate mesh specifically for doing the up and down. That's fun. Another thing to note is with Live2D, even if you have the pro version like I do, it is I'm not sure if you could actually see it. Let me look over. No, you can't see it in my OBS. But if you were to look at my particular Live2D program, you'd see I have Pro. It is a little bit pricey. It's like, I want to say about $110 in USD. They do charge yen. So it's whatever the exchange rate happens to be at the time. Right now, it's around like $110 USD. But even if you have the Pro version, you are going to have some limitations. You have a limited number of deformers you can make, which means you have to use the underlying mesh. You also have a limited number of parameters that you can create, which means you're probably not going to have toggles. In this case, because I do have Pro, because, you know, I want to do Live2D, I do, in fact, have the ability to basically use as many parameters as I want. However, there's a limitation, and that is that you should not have more than 3 parameters per deformer, if that makes sense. In other words, if you want to do additional, like, toggles and movements, you have to, like, add more warp deformers and stuff. It's complicated. So, let me see. Body up. Let me kind of zoom out to get actually body down, sorry. Which, as you can see, I did like a nice little squatting kind of a... And then tippy toes, squat, tippy toes. And obviously, the plush is not moving with this. So, going down... let's see here. The, cuff. I'm still have it on normal latency right now to hopefully prevent some of that issue. But you never know. So, let me see here. If we're going down, it means that this has got to come down. So typically I hit shift to make it do a clean move. But now, because it's moving down, I'm going to want it to kind of come up a little bit. So if I remember correctly, it's Alt. Yeah, Alt to kind of shrink it in place. And then from there, I'm going to hide the bounding box so I can actually click this to kind of push it up. I will have to come back in and fix the edges here. I mentioned this last stream that I have some of the background peeking through here. But, that will be fixed probably in the later stages of this toggle. Because I'm probably going to have to make a new warp deformer just for this cuff. Like the inside of the cuff. Now with this, I'm going to go back up to the warp deformer. Another fun thing with Live2D is you got to always make sure that you have your keyform selected. If you try to like apply something to a keyform that you don't have in the green, you're gonna have problems. Because it's gonna think that you mean it for the things that you have it green. And that's obviously not what you want to happen. So once again, shift and then down. Now with this being kind of a big move down, I'm going to do the thing again where I hit Alt and then I close in the bounding box. Because if I didn't hit Alt, this is what would happen. And obviously that's not what I want to have happen. I'm trying to have it in that middle area. I might shift it down just a little bit more. I think maybe about there. And then I think I'll probably like pull in the corners. Again, this is a general guesstimation of about what it should look like realistically. It is not at all indicative of what it would look like, you know, if a professional rigging artist with tons and tons of experience did this. I have some experience. I made my own model here. But this thing that you see me using, as I mentioned last stream, it's smoke and mirrors. It's not as good as it looks. I have no toggles. My eyes look weird. I look like I'm, like, cross-eyed half the time. But But I guess that sounds about right for a duck. And it's just it's not my best work. And that's why I'm doing this. I did a raffle so I could improve my Live2D rigging before I did my second model. I'm thinking of how I can best... I think maybe shifting that over. I think that's about right. Knows why OBS just randomly disconnects. Let me know. Hello, DSFF. I am doing swell. It was thunderstorming this morning and I got woken up by a barking puppy and lightning this morning. But it is now a mostly clear sky. So I'm able to stream, which is fantastic. I am very pleased about this. And, thank you for popping on in this morning. I'm in the process of figuring out how I want this to look. Because, whoops. I am trying to make a good-looking model. Not for me, mind you, but for someone else. This little bit right here, I'm gonna be fixing, probably towards the end of when I'm done with all the main parts, but... Thinking like that, maybe? This probably needs to go down just a wee bit more. I talk to myself a lot when I am working on things. Mostly because it helps me get out my thought process. So now, if it goes up, like this. Okay, that's looking pretty proper. Like, the hand slides back. In theory. But then, you know, obviously have to go up, and then we also have to do all the physics stuff. Yeah, you know, it's a great morning now that it's not thunderstorming. I was very concerned. Very concerned. Also, by the way, if you hear, like, any weirdness with my audio, please let me know. I obviously can't hear what you guys hear on your end, and I try my best to make things work properly. But I am just now getting back to streaming on YouTube after streaming on Twitch for, like, half a year. So YouTube is a little bit different. Which, like, the whole OBS thing, I don't remember it doing this to me last year when I streamed on YouTube. I only did a few streams, mind you, but I don't remember it constantly having issues. I do have it on low latency, though, to hopefully fix that on your end. Hoping. Now we can go up to the tiptoes, going up. So here, it's going to be a similar process, basically just moving everything up. Do a shift. And then go up here, shift, and then find the cuff stuff, and then shift this up, and I can even probably do like this, and then move it up a little bit more, and then this particular deformer, kind of make it look a little bit more, just slightly shifted. I don't want it to look like an exact, you know, bump up. But probably kind of deepen that. And yeah, Zyrite, I would agree. You know, it's like almost 80 degrees here, Fahrenheit. Quite hot, probably humid. I have not actually been outside today, but I could tell how hot it is because I don't have the air conditioning on. Because, you know, that would cause too much noise. So, yeah. Gonna hide the bounding box again because that always gets in the way of this. Kind of move that up. So now if I click off of that to kind of see how this moves. Okay, that's moving a little bit too much, I think. The flush. So I think what I'm probably going to do to fix that, slightly move it down, but because it's going up, I imagine it might tilt back just slightly. So probably move this a little bit up. And then the tail, obviously, like I mentioned before, is going to have its own physics along. Okay. I think maybe like another little, kind of sell a little bit of the, I guess, divot, because it's a plush. Maybe bring that down slightly. There we go. So now, also when it looks down, when the body goes down, I imagine just a quick tweak, kind of bring that down. Just slight tweaking. And it's just to kind of sell the 3D, if you will. Even though we all know this is not 3D. Okay, so it looks like we got some decent movement here. Now, while it's in both of these positions, we have to also do left and right. And obviously, that's a little bit weird. So, we are going to fix this. Looking left with the body, we are going to want to kind of extend this cuff, right? It's going to be a bit more like this. And because we are down and to the right, we're going to kind of move this down. I mean, you could always do the process of doing the synthesizing of the corners, but I find sometimes with certain things that doesn't quite work out, especially because this is asymmetrical. You can't really reflect things the same way. But at least doing it this way, I'm going to get a little bit more of, I guess, an accurate result. So down and to the right. And again, I'm going to kind of and because it's looking to the left, we're going to kind of shift some things. So I'm going to get rid of the bounding box, move that over. So emphasizing the little divot in the knuckles here. Kind of bringing that out a little bit more. Bringing this in. Bring that over just a little bit because we still want that to curve pretty well. Because otherwise it's going to look a little bit weird. Maybe a little bit less curve over here on the fingers. I will say it definitely helps to learn how to draw hands. Hands are a kind of complicated thing in art. Without getting too complicated, when I was doing the art for this, I just went ahead and put this all together because I figured it could probably be just moved as a group, which it can. It's not maybe the most ideal way, but it works. And if it works, we roll with it. Because I've learned for, you know, over like the move this over a little bit more. Now, let me see here. Now, this is still a little bit high up. So I'm going to bring back the bounding box. Move this over. I want it to be about here. So this is going to kind of come up. But like this, we're actually able to see where we need to have the plush. So, back over to the plush over here. We can kind of bring this bad boy down. Now again, because we're looking this way, we got to sell it looking this way without it being too much of a move. So to do that, I'm going to hide the bounding box. And because it's going down, we're going to move this a little bit down. Move this in because of angling. Don't have to be super perfect because it's gonna be a little bit weird and floppy because it's a plushie. You can see the little button eyes. Originally, if I remember right, I was actually gonna do like stitching around here, and then I just said, nah. Like I had these, but either way, you could tell it's a little button eyes. So now we can kind of move that over. Again, kind of like Beanie Baby kind of texture. And actually with it like this, I might even imagine that this is slightly turned. Oh, wait. Wrong thing. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You gotta have the right deformer selected, because otherwise you have to redo things. So, I meant to do it like this, with the warp deformer selected. Just a slight turn. To kind of sell it. Bring that down a bit more. Kind of bring in the knuckles. And yes, I know this looks bizarre, but I promise it works. You just kind of move it however you need it. Alright. So that's... if it goes down and left, it does that. Okay. Shifting of the hand. Although over here, I feel like this needs to be brought in. And now I'll bring back the bounding box, because I feel like that could be like a little bit more like this. So we can kind of... okay, so with it going to the left, in theory... well, this should be more visible. I feel like it needs to be over a little bit more. We'll hide the bounding box. And actually, I'm going to undo. Because I don't want to quite do it. I want to actually have like a clean move over. And then we'll hide the bounding box. And then we'll move this over this way. Move this more like this. Now with a move over. Okay, now this, with this moved more like this. I feel like this needs to kind of come down. Basically, this is a very slow process of figuring out what looks right. And considering this is the neutral, this should probably be a little bit more over. And bring that down. Now, looks a little bit more natural. There we go. The plush, on the other hand, I want this to kind of be a little bit more of a down, slight shift up. There we go. So now if we move this like this, or if we go like this, I feel like this right here. Not high enough. I almost even feel like the plush should move just slightly over. Maybe even just a wee bit back. Because it's not a huge move, but it's enough to be notable. Okay, so now we go the other way. We gotta come the other way. Means this is actually going to be facing a little bit away from the front. So what I think I'm going to do here, since we are supposed to be down, we got to come back down. Bring it just a wee bit more down. And I'm gonna kind of morph this over. Also, you guys, just so you're aware, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. While I am not technically an expert in Live2D, I at least know enough to be able to rig a model at this point by myself. So I am happy to help anyone who has any questions about this stuff. You can do a lot more with it than just making a VTuber model. You can make animated emotes, you can make stream alerts, you can even make overlays, like custom overlays for people. And it's wonderful. Okay. Early mornings are not my thing. I can't even tell you how much I am not a 6 o'clock in the morning person. But, you know, Puppy was just not having the thunderstorm. Is chilling like a villain. You know, there is a song called Chillin' Like a Villain, and it is a fantastic song from Disney's Descendants. And you might judge me, but it's worth a listen. Now, around here, I think, is about where I'm going to want to squeeze in the box here. Because we're down, we're going to kind of bring it down a little bit like that. And now we're going to start messing with the actual positioning, as we are down and to the right. So we are going to bring that in, because you're not going to really notice it looking more curved as you turn. The closer fingers are going to be a little bit fatter, just because of perspective. Again, this is not, you know, perfection or anything. but it works. And yes, you know, I can imagine she is a big fan because Descendants is amazing. I'm really sad about one of the actors passing away, which is really unfortunate. If I remember correctly, they were gonna like make another like movie or like a TV show with his character, but you know, yeah. So obviously that didn't happen. You know, this is still a little bit too high. We're gonna kind of bring this down. As you can see, these warp deformers basically just kind of transform the mesh that they are attached to. In this case, it is this left hand. So if we come like this, back to normal, neutral, still looking down. That's looking a lot smoother, but now we have to take care of this part. Down and to the right. Now, with the way that this is, we're going to have to kind of squish it a bit. So I'm going to hold Alt to kind of squish it in place. I'm going to do Shift to kind of bring it down a little bit more, because I want this to kind of fit. And now we're going to have to kind of bring in this part, because this is supposed to obviously be coming from the sleeve, which is coming from under the shawl over here, which I'm going to have to make a deformer for in order to properly make it go up when this is over here. Yes, the one that played Cruella's son. I don't remember what his name is, and I feel so bad about that. But I have ADHD and I have memory issues. He was a fantastic actor, and it's really just a shame that he passed away so young. Okay, this is looking more proper. It's looking like it's kind of moving away from us. Although the plush is still a little bit tall. So we are going to kind of do a little bit of squishy action. Also to kind of angle it slightly. Maybe just another quick move over and down. There we go. That's looking a little bit more realistic, I think. I'm just shifting and just slightly up. I want this to... Speaking of which, ears probably need to come down a little bit on here. And then that way we have a proper... Woo! This is actually looking more 3D. Now you can kind of see how that works. Like I said, still have to fix a few little minor issues. Like this tiny little disconnect here, because they're two different meshes. They are not one layer. It's literally like 3 different layers here. We have the actual like cuff side, we have the edge of the cuff, and then we have the cuff inside. It's complicated doing Live2D at times. Because you have to conceptualize every, like, possible direction that something's going to look. And that's not always easy. Also, as a minor thing here, I'm gonna actually do an auto mesh of this and make it a heavier deform, because I don't really like how that looks. If you do that, it helps with the actual animation. There we go. So now it's a little less jank. Because there was like a really weird jagged thing over here. And that happens from time to time. Now, as always, we save our work. And we don't just save it once. We save it multiple times just for good measure. Because I have had work lost many times. And I am not a fan. I am not a fan at all. So, okay, so here we now have a working down with the angles. And now we have to figure out the up with the angles. Because, you know, you have to figure out every single possible direction that the person who's using it can have their model looking. And, you know, it's not the easiest thing in the world, and it's time consuming, but it is so worth it. It is so ducking worth it. I can't even tell you how things have changed for game development, like models for video games, like in Twisted Wonderland, for example, which is a game by Aniplex made for Disney. You have to bear in mind that there are certain limitations with Unity. I forget what they are, but I think it has to do with parameters. So in some cases, you'll have to figure out more efficient ways to do things, but you also won't really have to worry about toggles. Because you could literally just have different versions of a model used for different things. So now we are going to be doing the left and right up. I think the best way actually for this part is, I believe it's Control-Shift-Copy in order to copy a keyframe. Control-Shift-C. And then come here, Control-Shift-V, I think? Yeah. I really should have been doing that earlier, but, you know. Brain not functional at this hour. Yes, always save your art. You do not want to accidentally lose it. Now going over here to this deformer. Control-Shift-Copy. Come over here, Control-Shift-V. And then Control-Shift-V. Now this deformer. We're going to come back over. Control-Shift-Copy. Movement when you look down anyway, so it's probably better that I did them all manually anyhow. What I basically just did is I copied this keyform, which is the neutral middle. Like, instead of looking left and right, it's just neutral in the middle. And then the up motion. As you can see, we are on our tippy toes. We go up. So we are looking up and to, or not really looking up, but moving up and to the right with the body. So the way that that is going to work, now that we have, you know, obviously these need to move. So, because we are on the left, we are going to do the Alt and then move the bounding box in. But we're going to kind of pull this out a little bit because we can see a little bit more of it, even though it's behind the plushie. Now it's a little bit quote-unquote lopsided, if you will. And that's fine because that's part of perspective. I don't have to really worry too much about shifting the bottom, but I will shift it just slightly for sake of, you know, making it look a little bit different so that it looks a little bit more realistic of a movement, because you would never see something just stay put. But that's really what Live2D is. You don't technically have to be an artist in order to use it, which is one of the kind of really cool things about it. There are rigging artists, such as Brian Swee, who literally just does the rigging. And he does a fantastic job, and I want to be as good as him someday. There are other rigging artists who don't do the art, but do the rigging. Although, I will say Live2D artists are actually kind of hard to find. A lot of them will be people who will make the model art, but will not do the rigging. And that's why I wanted to learn how to do the rigging, because, I mean, if I could, you know, fill in a little bit of a gap. That helps me, and it helps other people out too. Now we got a little bit of a deformed cup over here, which is a good thing. Not trying to click on that. Drink some water real quick. I will note that trying to get to partner on YouTube without emotes is a little bit saddening. I was able to get to affiliate pretty quickly on Twitch, but the thing is that Twitch has a much lower threshold. I really can't wait to be able to unlock emotes for streaming, because I want to be able to offer those emotes. So if we're moving from over here to over here, I think actually I'm going to do the plush first. So since we're moving over to the right, stands to reason that I'm going to move over a little bit. Not a whole lot. Ever so slightly. The real thing that's going to change, because it's on the left side, is going to be the perspective. Which means that this is going to be a much more squishy blush. Much more squished in. And maybe even a little bit pulled in like that. And then I can move this just ever so slightly over. And then do Control H to hide the bounding box. Shift this. Move that in. Moving over like this. I also want to kind of make the fingers look a little bit straighter because we are at an angle. So now, when this moves, it looks a little bit like that. Which I think is fantastic. Now we gotta do the down. Before I do that, I'm gonna save my work again, because why the duck not? I tend to do so about every few, like, keyframes, because, once again, I am not a fan of losing my work. I'm not sure anyone is. Especially something like this, where you have to put a lot of time and effort in. So now with this moving over this way, that means that this is going to kind of shift to be open. We're going to do this whole thing. Move that slightly, but then hide the bounding box. We're going to kind of move that up. Maybe push that in a bit. Now we got a little bit of a movement coming around. I might even still just move that a little bit more like that. Now I'm going to come over here. We're going to shift this slightly over. And this side, it's going to kind of come in a bit. Because again, perspective. Also, I apologize for any latency issues. I made this a regular, normal latency stream, and I'm still seeing a lot of problems. So I hope it's alright on your guys' end. Right now, I'm seeing excellent connection on mine, but I don't know, honestly. My OBS keeps cutting out. So come over like this, and then the plush also needs to come along. So plush, we're gonna do shift, click. And like I said, Live2D looks way scarier than it actually is. I promise. Cutting out, yeah. I had a feeling. That's good. That's very good. I'm really not sure what I have to do in order to fix my issues with the cutting out, but I'm gonna have to figure out something. You know, I thought it might be bitrate. I reduced the bitrate to try to make it better, and it's still having issues. Gonna kind of tuck this in a little bit because we are looking this way. We are looking up and up and to the left, and then probably bring in that ear. Maybe not quite that much. This side is gonna look a little bit closer. Bring that out. Yeah, it's a little bit too far over, I think. Or actually, I feel like this isn't far enough over. It is a little bit of experiment until it looks right. Like, that's looking a lot better. Although, I probably am gonna... Maybe not that one, but like this. There we go. That looks more accurate to anatomy. Also, to any creators out there who want to do streaming at all, just as an FYI, you can use Stream Beats by Harris Heller from Spotify to stream in your streams. It is free, copyright free, and you don't have to really worry about like the copyright claims. And so it is great for streams like art. I do recommend. That is what we are listening to. This album is the Neon album. I really should get up like a Stream Elements thingy. I think Stream Elements has a thing where you can like actually show what songs you're playing, because I think that would be really useful. Right now we're on Riverdale Express, which is the 19th track in Neon, which is I believe their latest album. Yeah. Okay, so I think let me see. I feel like this needs to kind of come in a little bit more. Like right over here. I also feel like the cuff needs to come over a little bit more. And yes, this really is just a lot of playing with things until they look right. Which is why I say you don't have to be an artist. You know, it might be helpful. And then over here, I want to do more of a... more like that. I feel that is more realistic. Although right here, feel almost like we should just slightly increase that so it overall increases the size, because I feel like it shouldn't be quite so dramatic, if you will. I'm also thinking about maybe even making like the little paws here, is what I'm calling them. I feel like maybe even having them do like a little slight waving motion whenever it's moving is like additional like physics along with the ears and the tail. I don't know. No music? What? Ow! What happened? OBS? Give me a second. I'm gonna quickly just, fix this. Can you hear it now? Because it was supposed to be a little bit quiet. Do you hear it now? Yeah, it's just lo-fi. Okay, perfect. Because it's been going the whole time, but yeah, very lo-fi. It's been going this whole time, mind you. But the music is kind of quiet because it is lo-fi. It's supposed to be just kind of chill. This particular track is Basking Turtles. I very much like this album. Okay, so now if we do this, for the most part, this is looking about right. Come here. He looks so squishy. Like looking at the plush here. So neutral and to the right. I have not actually rigged. That is weird. I'm gonna quickly just... I mean, I technically rigged it because I moved it over, but I didn't actually hide the bounding box or anything to properly squish. There we go. That looks better. Might even move that out just slightly, just to kind of give them a little bit more fullness through here. Gonna kind of bring that down a little bit. I do not like how OBS cuts out. I'm gonna try out Prism, I think, next Live2D stream and see if that streaming software is any better for this issue. Also think I want to kind of fix this and just make it slightly bigger. There we go. So now we should have... That is looking so much better. Now I get to figure out all the difficult stuff. Although before I do that, one last thing I think I'm gonna fix. not quite have that, so there we go. Now that the bulk of that is done, I am going to do a separate deformer over here. I'm gonna come over here, click on this, and I'm gonna do another auto mesh, make this a heavy deformation to help improve this, right? Although it was mostly already like that. I am going to make a warp deformer. And then that way, I can come over here. We always make our keyforms. If we do not make our keyforms, we will hate ourselves because you will do a lot of work and then have a lot of problems later. I've learned that the hard way because when I was making my first model, I did not know how keyforms worked. So I just spent so much time deforming all of my layers to just have nothing accomplished. Because I would move one way and go, why isn't it moving? Why isn't it moving from the spot? Only to realize, oh. Because if you actually looked at my model, I don't actually use any warp deformers. Even though I had the trial version at the time. I could have used them. I think what I'm going to do real quick, go through all the keyforms, make sure that this actually matches up. As you can see, even in the neutral, it doesn't quite match up. So the way we do that, we just kind of move it left, move that over. Fixed. It's fixed, right? We hide the scuff from being lazy. Okay, so that looks like it's working right. And we go back to neutral, up, bring that down, and then go left, and then go right, now we're gonna go down, and then we're gonna go like this, and we're gonna go left, so now, oop, that middle one needs to be fixed. Okay. So now in theory, no matter where we go, up, down, left, right, we're gonna be covered. No holes. No more holes. So now that part's fixed, then we're gonna have to make a warp deformer for the shawl, because we're gonna have a special movement for when the cuff is kind of in the way. Ugh. Just readjusted myself real quick. Ugh. And drinking some water. One day I'll have Pepsi again. But that day is not today, because I am out of Pepsi. Lovely. So now, I'm going to go to shawl. We're going to do a warp deformer. And we are going to do... You don't have to name these. I just name them for my own benefit here. So I'm gonna say toggle all XY. I'm actually gonna say plush toggle, because when I do the other side with the staff and the magic, I'm gonna have to do another deformer for that. Because as I mentioned earlier, when you make a deformer in Live2D, you do have the problem called you can only have 3 parameters per deformer. And they're kind of important in order to be able to see what you have to have something do. I don't know why the limitation exists, but I'm sure it has something to do with like memory and RAM and things like that. So, we are going to do a quick over here because we don't currently have this attached. We're going to do the 2 dots, right? We already know how this normally is, right? But when this is active, we need the shell to do certain things. We come back up here, we get our keyforms, because otherwise we will have problems. We'll start neutral first. I really don't understand OBS and why it has to disconnect every like 5 minutes. But that's not gonna be very cool if I am to be streaming over here. As I was saying, basically, with this over here, I don't really see much of a problem. But if we look up, I think, yeah. Well, it might not even be so much of a problem. Yeah, it's a problem right there. So basically what I'm going to do for this singular keyform is just kind of bring this up a little bit. And I'm going to bring this down. It's a very slight difference. But it's just one of those quality of life things. Am I efficient? No. But does it work? Yes. Save that. So now we have it just slightly over here. And actually, for the cuff, I want to actually figure out where my stuff is here. Because I actually want to see. Because I'm not quite sure I want it squished that far down. And that's kind of why I wanted to move the shawl. Then over here, I can have it more like this. And because of the way things work, let me just go over here. That's the bounce. That's the... still not the right one. I will say, it does slightly complicate certain things. There we go. We got just ever so slight extra deformation. Alright. So now, regardless which way we're going, alright, when the body's up and this is to the side, that's plenty high. Making sure that it looks mostly natural. But I don't feel like the cuff is quite high enough. Compared to like here or here. I think that's what's messing with me. So the way we fix this is very easy, chat. All we have to do, literally just pick the right keyforms that we need. Oops. I want to go up. Let's undo that. I want this to be up more so that when this comes more forward, move this slightly up. Not super up, but just slightly. There we go. I feel like that should be more over, so we can see that a little better. And maybe even have it come down just slightly, because we want it to look as realistic as possible. I mean, it's not going to look realistic. We'll be realistic with that. But it's gonna look pretty decent. So now we have a perfectly working toggle here. Now the difference is we now have to rig all of the physics. This is gonna be interesting. So like up here with these, I have to do the same thing down here. This is mirrored. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to do, yeah, I actually made parameters for the little paws so that they would actually kind of go with the ears. So this, let me see. I'm gonna do L plush here, because fun fact, guys, whenever you are doing Live2D, your left, whenever you're doing left things, it's actually the right side of your screen. Whenever you're doing right things, it's the left side of your screen. Basically, pretend that your model is actually a person looking at you. That is effectively the best way I can explain it. So, this is going to be for the physics X and Y. I'm going to do the same thing over here. This is going to be R blush. Here is X, because I already made a new one. But this is awful. The dropping of connection constantly is kind of not great. If it drops once more, I'm probably gonna end the stream, because I don't want to be having you guys dealing with all the stuttering, and I need to find a solution. I'm gonna be doing Dark Souls tonight on my gaming channel, so I might even try to see if I could set up things better, because right now we are dealing with a constant problem of just constant dropping. I am going to drop my Discord here in the chat. If you guys would like to keep up to date on what's going on, if we don't have thunderstorming around the time that I'm streaming tonight, then I'm gonna be streaming. We're gonna be doing crowd control, which is basically you guys get to interact directly with the game that I'm playing. Because I'm playing Dark Souls, effectively you can make a hard game harder. So thank you guys for coming today. I'm sorry about the disconnection issues and the kind of quiet music initially, but I do hope to see you guys next time. I think I might do a Live2D stream on Saturday. because I did post a community poll, effectively, for which days I, should be streaming in the morning for Live2D. And so far I've, seen Saturday, so we'll see how that goes. I may do some rigging in the meantime in the middle of the week. Not sure yet. It's going to depend on my time. But yeah, I do want to thank you guys for coming today, and I hope to see you tonight. If not, I hope to see you at the next Live2D stream. Thanks again!